Okay. Hello, everybody. Beautiful, beautiful people. I'm Hadia. Welcome back. I'm here with Kris. So HadiaLoving.com is my webpage. I am a spiritual counselor, life coach, and I support you in creating a good life for yourself through dating, finances, and self-caring, self-nurturing, and letting go of the things that don't necessarily support you in your life. And I asked Kris to join me on this journey. I've known Kris for a long, long time. And Kris, I met you when you were 4 years old.
I believe it.
Kris's mom and I are very good friends, and I love your mom. And that's how I met Kris years ago. Kris is 26 now, and he's been on this beautiful, amazing journey, discovering himself and creating community through learning how to communicate, through game, through song, through poetry and art, and also dating, having a good dating life. And when Kris and I were at dinner, we were talking, I was like, wow, he's an amazing young man. I want to do this podcast with you, Kris, because I think you have good things to offer to our people. And I work with a lot of young people in their early 20s, and that's why I think this would be useful. What you have to share will be useful for people. So Kris, introduce yourself, and please tell us also about your art and everything that you do, and then we can go in depth about how you created community through game and through art, and learning how to talk to women and dating and all that stuff. So go ahead.
Well, my name is Kris, and as Hadia mentioned, we've known each other for a very long time. I'm 26. I've been through high school and college both, and my primary interests at this point include digital painting, singing, songwriting on the guitar, and also tabletop role-playing games, which I think will feature very heavily in this discussion.
Yeah. You sell your art, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
And you're amazing. You're an amazing artist. Where can people go to check your art out?
Well, I have an Instagram page that would probably be the first landing point for anybody taking an interest in my art. You can find that at lich_Keela, which is LICH_KEELA. And that'll have the links to all of my other stuff on there.
That's awesome. Do you want to add that next to your name, so if people watching us, they can actually see it?
I'm not sure I know how to do that.
It's under rename. If you click on where participant is, there's like an arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll see, it will tell you can rename yourself.
I see.
Yeah.
You want me to just add it in like parentheses after that?
Yeah. So people can have access to it easily, because your art is amazing, and it's, people might like it and want to purchase it. That would be
excellent.
Yeah.
All right, it's on there.
Okay, great. So when we were talking, you were mentioning, and I didn't check, so I have to tell you guys, Kris doesn't really know what we're talking about. So this is all fresh. And but what I felt was interesting and useful when you shared, like, you were a nerd and it was challenging to socialize, that you found a shift. And you found that shift through, what is that game that you play? You mentioned, I've forgotten right now.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, Dungeons and Dragons. And you were, because I was like, but nerds are in, and you're like, nah, yeah, but not when I was young. Nerds were not in quite yet. Like, nerds are in now, and everybody wants to be with nerds and wants to date nerds, and it's like the cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you were young, you're still young, you're 26, but it was still a challenge, like crossing that social boundaries from being young and playful to being a young adult. And I'd love for you to share with our people about that, and then that transition, and then I can chime in with the spiritual growth and learning and all that good stuff. You ready, Kris?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Yes. You're amazing. I love you so much.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Um, so the original part of the experience where this was all very awkward and uncomfortable was probably maybe 10 or more years ago, again, when the nerd thing wasn't quite there yet. It was right on the cusp, but for the most part, they were still treated as kind of an outsider class among the young social circles. I had discovered Dungeons and Dragons on my own through my own interests because I saw a box in the bookstore and I was like, that's really cool. It's got heroes and dragons on it. That looks like fun. And so I taught myself how to play the game, but had very few people to play with. And so, of course, it's a game that necessitates having multiple people involved, but also that has some social consequence to it when you try to introduce someone into this kind of nerd sphere. So early on, it would probably just be me and a couple of my closest friends that I knew. Like we were into video games and all the same kind of stuff. So this was just a natural extension of our own like playtime that we had. And then that was fine for a while until we moved from Hawaii, where I grew up, to Arizona. And I couldn't connect with the people that I had enjoyed the game with prior to that anymore. And again, I had to build a new group of people to play with. But at
Mhm.
the same time, this was just at the beginning of high school where things are starting to become very, very uncomfortable as a young teen. And you want to fit in. On top of that, I was going from a school of 200 to a school of 2000. So there was just a lot more going on.
Yeah.
And I very slowly made some friends that were, okay. I got along with them well enough. We had similar interests. And I tried to introduce them to the game when I felt that this might be a comfortable place to do it because it was very important to me, something I had been doing for many years by that point. And I was met with a lot of resistance, even having friends not talk to me anymore after that, just completely ostracize and shut me out. So I very much kept it under the radar for most of my time there until I met some other students in the school that I became friends with that were a little bit older, a little bit more mature, kind of my speed, and also had kind of those nerdy interests like video games and anime. And I thought, okay, let's try this again. And so little by little, I introduced one person, got a positive response. They said they might know someone who would also be interested, a significant other or a friend. And then you get two people and then three people. And it got to the point where pretty much everyone in our social circle was in on it. Except I think I told you the story, the one guy who I'm actually living with now, funny enough. And the story goes that one day we're playing at my other friend's house, and this friend who didn't know lived basically right next door. And we got a message from him saying he's coming over. There was no like, can I come over? It was just he's coming over. So we're deep in this game, dice, screen, books, character sheets all over the table. There's no way we're gonna scramble and like clean this up and try to hide it. So they asked, what do we do? I said, we do nothing. So he walks in the door and he's like, what the heck is this? I'm like, sit down. You're gonna play with us. And so at that point, the circle was complete, and he ended up being as the person that we introduced last because we didn't think he would be interested in it. He's probably one of the most avid players at this point. We still play together to this day. So that was kind of. Go
Um,
ahead.
I love that you took something that worked for you. And then even though in the beginning you had to keep it under wraps, you stayed consistently and true to what worked for you. And that's a gem that I want people to hear. Like if something works for you, keep doing it. And then when it was appropriate, you started introducing it to other people. Like you kept it safe close to your chest, and little by slow, you didn't give up on it because people, it was like a taboo thing. You didn't give
Hmm.
up on it. You stayed true to yourself. And I hope people, young people, and whoever's listening to this is hearing this message. People of all ages, all of us need to learn to be true to ourselves. And when it's appropriate, share our nature and what we love to people. So that's awesome. So your friend who is your roommate, so continue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to wrap that up too, if there's something that resonates with you on a core level, even if other people don't agree with it, and you keep coming back to it, stick with it, and eventually you'll meet somebody who you get the right feeling from. And it is a joy and a gift to be able to share something like that with the right audience. And it will have made all that time spent holding it close to the chest worth it in the end.
That's
So don't give
brilliant.
up on
Yes, it's brilliant. And it's important. Like keep doing what you love, what you care about, and you'll find your people in the world. The world is big, and right
it.
now,
Yeah.
and it's been getting smaller and smaller, especially through Zoom and internet. The world is big, and you'll find your people. You might not find your people right away because it took you years to find your people.
Hmm.
It didn't just happen instantly. And the brilliant, courageous thing is that you didn't give up. Oh, I apologize. My phone usually doesn't ring until I'm busy. Usually it rings when I'm on the phone with people. It's like we're working right now.
Yeah.
So so yeah, and that's a good point to mark, is that continue doing what you love, even if it takes few years. It took you few years to connect and find your people who love Dungeons and Dragons. So and actually I know a lot of young people who play it, not just young, like I'm 53, so to me anybody who's not 50 is young. People in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and they just love it. It's a fun game, it seems like.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
very cathartic in its core because it's collaborative storytelling, which is something that humans have been doing forever. So it
yeah,
resonates very deeply.
that's awesome. And like using your imagination, and
Hmm.
it's just beautiful. I love that. It seems like it's not just a game, it's artistic.
Oh
It,
yeah.
it opens up your imagination, and you get to be creative. That's just brilliant. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think in a large part, it's kind of the focal point of a lot of the different creative work that I do because in its core, you're writing and acting,
Hmm.
two very creative things. But then if you wanted to describe your character in greater detail, you could do a drawing. So now you have art involved as well. And I have another one of my friends plays with a group in Europe, and one of their players is a very avid musician, such that during their games, he has his guitar in hand and can just invent little tunes and riffs that he can
Oh, I
play like in
love it.
time with the dialogue. Or if we're having a toast, he'll say, "What's the theme of the song that we want?" And he'll just whip up a song on the spot. So now you have music involved as well.
You wrote a song
I
for,
did write a song.
are you open to playing it for us? You don't have,
Probably not today,
okay.
only because I'm a little out of practice. The song is also not finished yet.
I know. Okay, next time.
Next time, yes.
Yes, because you're creative that way. You play the guitar and you're a songwriter as well. So it sounds like this game, the game, and this. So this podcast is not about the game, okay? This what the message here is: the game was a tool for you, Kris, to create community and friendships, and then you started opening up the doors for dating when you were ready
Mhm.
in your life. So the message here is find something that is a useful tool for you, whether it's a game or music. Like a lot of people learn to play the guitar because that's something people connect with each other through song, through music. And it just expands your world. So you use I want to call it Great Game of Thrones, but it's not. Dungeons and Dragons. People use that too. um, and you expanded your social life. And how old were you when you started connecting and started a circle? Because I know you said you're like 5 or 6 when you saw it on the shelf and you saved money. You bought your first game for yourself because you wanted that and you were really young. And that's impressive. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it was a little later than that. I think it was maybe 10.
Okay, 10 is still
Um,
young.
10, still very young, something
Yeah.
that I'm very proud of. Um, but yeah, so at that point I had been writing and playing it on and off for about 6 years
Mhm.
at that point. But it felt like this was the first time when I could really invest in it because I had people who were invested and consistent and truly cared about it, that I could share this experience with.
That's awesome. So you started building your community when you was like 15, 16, a new
Mhm.
community when you moved from Hawaii to Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good point to point out as well that you stayed true to what you wanted. You stayed true that you wanted to connect with having friends and a community of friends. Because in Hawaii, I used to come visit you guys a lot. It's a small community and everybody's like ohana, like family. Everyone's family in Hawaii. It's not like moving to a big state like Arizona and a big city.
Hmm.
So it's different. It's a different way of being. Like I live in Los Angeles and it's not easy to build friendships and become family. In smaller communities, you just plug in and you become family right away. It's actually very beautiful.
Yeah.
So so and then you mentioned when we were having dinner, like you started building a system to connect with people and to start dating and with girls, women now. So I mean, go on. Just I would love to for you to I would love to hear like how your group of friends, you guys started transitioning into girls, boys, yay, because it's like you start out being innocent in a group of people, and then your hormones kick in, and you're like, all right, how do we do this now? Right?
Exactly, exactly. So that of course is happening in the background for even before I moved away from Hawaii, and to some lesser extent in Arizona as well, when I first moved there. And because there were other people, there were girls in the collective friend group of the people that I introduced into the game, that were potential romantic partners. So that gave me, because we were always hanging out and then hanging out even more because we were talking about the game and doing the stuff that we would normally do in our little kind of tight knit group, it was gave us or gave me ample opportunity to interact with these women and get to know them better and try to pursue them in a way. Of course, still very inexperienced at this point, so that comes with all of its flaws. But I think the real crystallization of this whole system came when we moved again, to another city in Arizona, smaller school this time. But after having done this 2 times already, I thought to myself, okay, I need a strategy
I
because
love that. So point that out. It's really important because I work with a lot of young men come to me and they're like, I want to date women, and it's about strategy. I'm sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you, but I'm excited. So
yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So I recognized that getting involved with activities and smaller subgroups within your grander community is one of the easiest ways, not only to make friends, but also to meet women. I've
yeah.
heard it said many times that the best way to meet someone that that you could be interested in and have a real relationship in terms of romantic interest is by meeting them through a mutual friend.
Mhm.
And to that degree, in a lesser extent, if you're in a sub community like a sports team or a club, then you're all at the very least acquaintances and see each other relatively often, giving you ample opportunity to interact with them. So it's not like the whole online dating thing that's popular now, where it's like you get one chance to wow someone and then they'll forget about you, which is just not, it's not fun. It's not how we're really wired to do things. And it's mostly just a lot of disappointment.
Yes.
So my strategy when I moved the second time was to get involved with as many things as I possibly could in the new school that I was in. So I joined a sports team for the first time. I met some women there. I joined the kind of like school pride like activities that we would do during football games and such. We would organize little dance routines and create like props and decorations for the school. Met some women through that. I joined the art club because of course I love to draw. Met some women through that. And then as well, through these other things, I found people that could potentially be interested in my becoming part of my new Dungeons and Dragons group because I had moved. I still went back occasionally to play with the other guys, but I needed something, a new group that I could have consistently available to me in the place that I lived because
Locally. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, locally.
Local connection, local community. That's important. Yes, I love it.
Yes. And so through these other groups, such as the art club and sports and school activities, I met some people that would be interested in the game. And some of these people were also women that I was attracted to. And so now I had a very ideal situation in this case where very quickly I created a relatively large group of people because not everybody was available all the time. But everybody was part of this group and we would talk about it a lot. And I would have another member come up to me and say, oh, I know this other person who might be interested in it. Can I invite them? And so we would all meet up. I'd get to meet a new person. They would become a new friend or a new potential romantic interest. And it just went from there.
So I want to point this out. Sorry, Kris. This is really important. I want to highlight that you meet a potential love interest or dating interest. You didn't say love. I say like that because I love love. Or a potential friend. And that's the thing I think all of us need to learn. When we start creating community, it's important to create men and women in our circle because we're all valuable, not just be like the guys or the girls and the girls going out to a bar, the guys going out to a bar to pick up each other. It's let's all hang out. Because I think the best support is to have, if you're a female, to have a bunch of guy friends. If you're a male, to have a bunch of female friends, women friends, and supporting each other. Like I tell the best wing person is not another person. If you're a guy, another guy, the best wing person is another woman because she has girlfriends. And it makes you feel safe. You're safer to other women if you're hanging out with a woman. It's women would come up and they just feel more comfortable, and not
Exactly.
just socially, not just for dating and sex, also socially expanding your circle, inviting everybody in, because you don't know who's going to end up being your best friend or end up you going out and hiking, talking, having sex, or just having coffee with someone. So it's brilliant that you kept your circles open. It wasn't just, oh, I'm just going to hang out with these kinds of people. It sounds like you were opening to everybody, the artists, the nerds, the intellectuals, and that makes your life rich and fun. Yeah. So go ahead, tell us more about that.
Well, I mean, that went on for some time, and I did end up dating some of the people that I brought into that group, which was great for me. And some of those people that I met through that group have become my longest lasting and best friends, even like brothers or family to me. And it was all because they took an interest in this thing that I was very passionate about, and then we got to share that experience together. And it has just cemented us as bonded individuals for, I imagine, the rest of our lives.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And how did you guys handle like in your circle of men and women, you guys started dating each other. How did you guys deal with the jealousy, and then like, oh, now Kris is this with this other girl, and they were friends, and like, how did your group manage? Because it takes emotional maturity to be like, okay, me and this girl dated for a few dates, and we just decided to be friends, and both of you have moved on to someone else in the group, because people do that in social circles. How did you guys manage the maturity and not the jealousy, and having the group break apart and all that?
Very messily, I would say, because of
Good.
course we're
Tell
all
it.
still high school kids.
Yeah.
There was definitely a lot of what you are describing, the jealousy on both sides. I had been told by the women in that group that a lot of the other men wanted to be me because I was the one who kind of led this whole group and made a lot of the decisions. So I attracted the most attention from the women. And then when I dated one woman and then moved on to another one, I couldn't invite them to the same game sessions anymore because the passive aggressive behavior between them, for good reason, would just cause the game to derail.
Mhm.
Which was not my intention, of course. When we're in that mode, I'm my priority is getting the game going and making sure everybody has a good time. But of course, we would spend a lot of time hanging out afterwards or outside of the game, and that's where these other things would happen. So it became messy after a while.
And it does. But it when when does this messiness subside? Because all of you guys are older now, you're in your 20s, and you still have group of people that you play this game with,
Hmm.
Dungeons and Dragons, and you're still social with the women that you've dated. So when do you think the transition happened, and what needed to happen inside of you to do your inner work and inside of them, so you guys can just connect as friends and supportive friends? Because you just mentioned earlier, like, some of these people you'll be friends with for the rest of your life. So some of these women you've dated, it sounds like, would be your friends for the rest of your life as well.
Yes, actually, one of them is dating one of my best friends right now. I just actually got to see her for the first time in a few years yesterday.
Nice.
And it took a few years, because that particular breakup was rather messy when we were still in high school. And I don't think I talked to her again until my sophomore year of college.
Mhm.
So we just needed the time to kind of figure ourselves out and recover from that relationship and realize that we were still friends and had a lot in common all along. It just took time for all of that pain and heartache to subside, but the interest was still there. And now we're great friends again.
That's beautiful. So, and that's another highlight here. It's good to take time away from someone that you love and care about. You've dated, you've had sex with, and you had a lot of feelings. It's good to take time away from each other. And then it's good to heal. Take the time to heal your heart, heal your feelings, and then reassess and revalue the importance and how valuable the relationship is, and reconnect. That's a beautiful transformation that a lot of people are not capable of doing. They throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah,
Instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you just keep the baby in the bathwater and you walk away for a while. Not literally, figuratively speaking.
yes.
Please don't keep your baby in the bathwater and walk away. Don't do that. It's like, you just take time out for yourselves to heal, to grow, to learn, and then you reconnect. And it sounds like you guys connected and seeing what worked for you, because that's what brought you together,
Exactly.
you
We
know.
were friends before we started dating.
Mhm.
And so naturally, after we had taken that time to heal, it still made sense for us to be friends and very good friends at that.
That's awesome. And that's important as well, is to keep the friendship. you know Romance ends, it does, and you guys are still young. You'll learn, you'll fall in love over and over again, many times over. as long as you give yourself the opportunity to heal your hurt, your heart, and you keep it open. And then eventually you'll decide, maybe not, to be with a partner for longer than just 6 months or a few days or a few weeks or a few years. That's beautiful. So I love it. It's great. So what has been different from high school to college to an adult man living in the world, transitioning from the different stages? What do you think needed to happen for you, Kris, and your friends, so you guys can step into manhood and womanhood, adulthood, really, and keeping the integrity of your joy, keeping the integrity of you connecting still with playing the game, which is Dungeons and Dragons for you. Other communities do other things. So yeah, tell us about that.
Well, fortunately for me, many of the friends that I had in that circle in high school, whether they were in my grade or a grade below me, went to the same college as me because it was a natural choice. So we continued to interact then, and then when we all eventually graduated, we kept a very tight-knit group on the internet through voice call servers. And this became our natural method of continuing the game as well. When people graduated, they moved to different cities or to different states to get their jobs, and it was just not feasible for us to meet regularly in person anymore. But we still were very efficient at planning out specific blocks of time that we could all spend together doing the same thing, as close to what we had originally done as we possibly could, but through the internet.
Mm.
Um, and so most evenings I could log on and see, just maybe one or just a couple people in there. And you just hop in, we can start talking about whatever we've had happen that day. So it's kind of the virtual equivalent of coming home and having a few friends sitting in the living room and saying, how was your day? What'd you do today?
That's wonderful. So you found a form to stay connected.
hmm
And do you guys still have specific nights that you get together? I You almost play every night, right? Or no?
we may play some video games every night, or at the very least just chat. But the role playing games themselves are something that we have to plan usually at least a week in advance, and it
Mhm.
doesn't happen every week because we all have jobs now with different schedules that don't necessarily match up. So we have to go through the motions of, all right, is anybody free this day? Okay, what time? Okay, one person works that day. Okay, let's pick a different day. Is anybody free this day? So it's a tedious process, but we've become very good at it over the years. So it still eventually works out in the end, and we can still block out that time that we can all be on. And we typically prefer to do like this, where we have a video call, we can actually see each other's expressions, and it's much more engaging than just hearing someone's voice through your headset.
See, what I love hearing is that you guys make it important for you to get together and you make it work for everybody. So it's putting in the effort. You can't, because a lot of people live in wishful thinking. Oh, I want to do this, but you got to put in the effort. You can't just live life doing wishful thinking. If you want to get together with one or more people, you got to get your schedules together and commit to the outcome and make it happen through exercising it,
Yes.
exercising, like checking each other's schedule. Like I talk about that a lot, the videos that I do in my work. If you want to change your thinking, you got to literally be active in changing your thinking. If you want to change your life, you can't just say, I'm going to change my life and then do affirmations. You got to do action steps. You and your friends, it's important for you to get together. So you do action steps towards that and you make sure it happens even if it's tedious, it is challenging to get two people's schedules together, nevertheless, more than two people.
Yeah, there's 5 or more people.
Exactly. It's not that easy. And I love that you guys have a level of commitment into keeping yourselves together in your community, because it feels it feeds your spirit and your soul, and it gets you excited and looking forward to being together and being alive on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And how is the transitioning like with social commitments in, because you just moved recently,
Yes.
even though you moved with one of your good friends. So how do you manage, because young people lives changes a lot. It, like in the olden days, my grandfather's times, if somebody was a doctor, they were a doctor. If they were a sales clerk, that's what they did. If they were a pharmacist for the rest of their, it's like life is not like that anymore.
No.
People have many jobs, they date a bunch of different people, they get married, they may or may not get divorced or separated. Like there's all these transition constantly that happens, and careers end, and new careers happen, and we, all of us constantly need to be back in learning, either through school or trade school or something, to up level and stay sustainable in this lifetime, at least for now. I don't know, you know, they keep talking about like some jobs are going to be extinct and the government's going to have to give people money like for jobs that are not going to be useful. I don't know when that's going to happen. It might happen soon, it might not, I don't know. But until now, it's like all of us need to be open to continuously learning, continuously growing, continuously up leveling our life financially, our physical self as well, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So what are the concrete practices that you do for your life, Kris, that help you with the transitions all the time? Because even though you have a bachelor's, you're educated, you're very smart, and you have a lot of talents, it's like your life, how many jobs have you had so far? And since you've been in the adulting.
Yeah. Well, I had a couple jobs when I was in college, of course. Two of which were programming internships because my degree is in computer science. But that's pretty much the extent of the programming work and work that I've done with my degree. Since then, I've been a barista, I've worked in construction, I worked at a building material store, I've worked in some cafes doing serving, and potentially in the near future, I might start learning welding. So it's just whatever you can make work and that has some amount of interest to you. Because I think for a long time, for me personally, I was stuck in the idea that if I didn't find a job that was directly related to my degree, it would have been a waste and it would not be worth it and that I wouldn't enjoy it, which is in no way true. You went to school for one thing, not necessarily knowing if that was the thing that you really wanted to do. It's fine to try something else and accept the fact that you like it. And maybe at some point it'll circle back around and I'll be doing computer programming again, but I'm fine with it not being necessarily that at this very moment, because if you get that thought trapped in your head, then it's only going to make it harder for you to actually succeed in whatever is available to you at the time.
That's really brilliant, because what you're saying here is you got to be humble and flexible to do what you need to do to thrive in your life. And it's not always necessarily your education. And I can relate to that. You know, I graduated as a spiritual counselor, and I've had all this practice. I had my own practice in Beverly Hills. And then all this said, like my clients moved, and owning your own business, you're an artist. Also, you're an artist and you sell your art as well. It's always ebb and flow, up and down. And then I found myself needing to get a job, but I needed a job to give me freedom so I can also work with my clients. So I think I was like 30 and I'm like, holy crap, I need to get a job to sustain me as I keep building my business. Because in
Mhm.
business, there's always up and flow. I got a job cleaning jacuzzis.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, and I was in the beginning, I was like, God, this is so beneath me. I have all this education and I loved it. I found that because I love water and I would go into these beautiful homes. My route was all over the hills of Los Angeles and I love driving. And I love being in like LA is so unique. There's all these different neighborhoods that look differently. It's just gorgeous. My intention also was I wanted to be fit, but working. So I got really fit and cut, like my arms looked good, my abs, and people were like, wow, you work out. I'm like, no, I don't work out. I work. Because I had to walk up and down stairs and hills. And it was so like I loved that I had the foresight and I was open to being flexible to I'm like, so what? Cleaning jacuzzis. And the hours, what I needed was flexibility in hours. I could set my own hours so I could do it whenever I wanted. And it was just like 4 days a week, 4 hours a day. And it didn't matter when I did it. So I love to hear you saying, yeah, you have your computer science degree and now you might learn to be a welder and you're a barista and you're a server. It's important to be flexible in life, to take care of ourselves and to thrive in our lives. It's not what we do, it's how we show up and how we do it. Showing up with being pleasant, with a good attitude, not kicking and screaming. Because when
Yeah.
a lot of people get stuck, because they tell us, oh, go learn this thing and you'll make a lot of money. It's not like that for everybody. Not everybody graduates and gets lucky and gets their dream job and starts making, that's rare. That's the exception, actually. And
Mhm.
I don't know what the percentage is. Most people that graduate from college don't end up doing what they learned in college. They usually end up finding themselves doing other things in life. And you and I are one of those people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a spiritual counsel life coach since 1997, but like I said, because it is also a business, it's always up and down. So I always need to have another income or other resource of income in the fire so I can pay my bills, so I can thrive in my life. Because financially struggling as a young person, and I've done that, is not easy. It sucks, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
It's like, oh my goodness, adulting is not fun right now. So open and flexibility and guided. I mean, this jacuzzi job, I'm part of this community called Heart-Centered Business. And I was just scrolling and it came up, somebody's looking to replace themselves as a jacuzzi. I don't know what they call it, jacuzzi person cleaning jacuzzis. Um, and I was like, that's interesting. That's fascinating. What is that? I've never even heard of it. Like a lot of times we don't even know that that's a job and you can get paid for that.
Yeah. You can't know what you don't know exists.
Exactly. But trusting, I felt like I was being guided because it popped right into my face and my thinking. I'm like, I need to look into this because I was asking the universe or God, whatever you want to call it. I wanted to have flexible hours. I want to make good money to cover my rent and bills. And I wanted to work out through working. And I didn't know that that was going to come through me cleaning jacuzzis in people's homes. Like I had no idea.
But at the same time, this thing that you didn't know existed still checked all those boxes. And it took the flexibility of being willing to of abstracting those requirements away from what the job actually was to see a job that you had not expected and say, yeah, this could work.
Exactly, exactly. And it was brilliant that I followed through. And it wasn't easy. Like I said, there were days where I'd be driving and I'm like, oh my God, I clean jacuzzis. I have all this education. What the hell is going on here? And it's like you mentioned, like uh not to that point, but like, I paid for my education and education is not cheap. So
No.
it's on one hand, it felt like such a letdown to myself and my
Hmm.
finances that I invested all this money in my education and I wasn't making money from it. It felt like such a disappointment and a letdown, and I had to work through that to continue showing up cleaning jacuzzis, and I really really enjoyed that job. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
So are you enjoying the different transformation for jobs, making money um, as a barista or as construction? And I've seen your construction work. You're very good at what you do. You could be like an engineer really, because you know how to figure things out. Um, you're very, very good at figuring mechanical engineering. So yeah, tell us about that and being open, like what, because we got to align ourselves from the inside and to be open, be like, you know what, okay, I'm gonna go and be a barista. Like so many people become baristas because that's just easy. And also you get insurance if you go to Starbucks. A lot of people work at Starbucks 4 hours a week so they can get health insurance. It just makes sense. Um, so what kind of like inner dialogue you had to transition into to be open to do the different jobs? Because I mean, it's, being a computer science guy, that's the thing that most people do. And that's very prestigious. It's like, yeah, wow. Um, so tell us about that, Kris.
Well, for a very long while, it was just moving from one thing to the next just to make ends meet. Because it's, even if you have a degree in this field, it's not easy to get a job, especially without a lot of references and contacts. And as time went on, those contacts that I once knew from when I was in school became more and more distant. And I still just had this piece of paper that said that I can write computer code. And so for a while, there was a lot of resistance in my own mind of like, how could I possibly be doing this? Like, I paid so much money to get this education. Why is nobody accepting me or hiring me? But at the same time, I had to think, well, I have to pay the bills anyway. So this will just be a for now thing, but I'm not happy about it. And that went on for many years after I was out of school until very recently, actually, where I just kind of accepted it's okay. Like, I think in a way, it's like when you're in a relationship with a romantic partner and you need that time away from the idea to really reset yourself.
Mhm.
In a similar fashion, if you go to school and you get a degree in something, you are kind of married to that idea of working in that job. And for many, possibly many years afterwards, if you're not in that field, you may feel this deep sense of unhappiness. But after a while of being separated from that educational environment where it was like, this is the one thing that I'm going to do, that's the whole reason that I'm here, I kind of just got over it and accepted that this is more mental stress and overhead than is necessary in my life. And in order to love myself more, I need to just let that go. It's not to say that I could never go back to that field or I'm not interested in still looking in it, but I'm not attached to the idea anymore. I'm attached to the idea of doing something that I enjoy regardless of what it is. And of course, makes enough money for me to live on.
That's brilliant. And that's one of the key things, releasing our attachment. Like we get labeled, oh, you went to school to be a doctor, so you have to be a doctor. It doesn't matter how much it pains you or how hard it is, or you went to school to be a lawyer, you went to school to be an artist. Like we get trapped and being labeled as like, no, there is no label. I'm just going to take care of myself. And it takes a lot of emotional maturity. I mean, I'm proud of you, Kris. I say that to you often. it takes emotional maturity to be like, okay, I'm gonna get out of being stuck and go do something different. I mean, you recently moved, so you can shift your life and do something different, be open to new experiences and new possibilities. And sometimes we do need to move, or we do need to go take another semester in something different, or at home. I mean, I know people who just sat home for 6 months and taught themselves how to be graphic designers, for instance, and they excelled in it, you know, or technical, different technical things. I have a really good friend. She's very successful in the world, and she does communication, like telephone community. It was telephone, now internet communications and stuff like that. And she built businesses around that. But she sat home literally for 2 years and taught herself how to do communication and all the technical parts about it that I don't know how to talk about because I didn't study it. And it's like she never went to college. She decided, she's self-taught, she was going to teach herself, and she did, and she's extremely successful, make tons of money, and is very happy. So it's trusting yourself and having that emotional maturity of getting out of being stuck and labeled, going, you know what, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do construction. I'm going to clean jacuzzis. I'm going to go babysit. I mean, I've done that too. When business was down, I'm like, okay, I'll be a babysitter. Babysitters make good money. They make 15 to 20, up to $25 an hour. That's when minimum wage was like really a $7 or something.
Yeah.
So if you can't do anything else, become a babysitter. There's good money in babysitting if you love children. Like I love children. To me, that's something I can always fall back on no matter what. So it's amazing to have that inner knowing and listening to your inner self and saying, I'm gonna get out of my way, ego, step aside, and I'm just gonna follow my truth. My truth is that I want to keep a roof over my head, and I'm gonna financially take care of myself. And that looks like right now, like for me at a time, it was cleaning jacuzzis or babysitting, or I started actually a cleaning company, and it was successful. It's like, whatever, I'm just gonna do it, and I'm gonna follow my intuition, and things do work out when we do that. So what else do you want to talk about, Kris?
Huh.
What else do you want to cover? I mean, we covered a lot of grounds. And
Yeah.
what I really want to go back to is the transitioning from being a nerd into like the strategies you cultivated to approaching women and dating women, and how 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 was it uncomfortable, and then transitioning into like, oh, I don't know what to do, into being comfortable, and it's just like, okay, I know how to talk to women now, it's not a big deal, and I know how to approach them, and you know, I've seen you do that and it's fun.
Yeah.
so, so yeah, tell us about that.
Well, in a very large way, going back to the whole nerd thing, is that being a nerd is just a label that
Mhm.
we put on ourselves, which has a lot of connotation behind it, that is kind of universally accepted. But that need not be the case. And I think that was the key point for me to figure out, is that I knew I like nerdy things. That does not necessarily mean that I am a nerd or have to act like a nerd, because I don't think that's who I am. And so in that social circle, naturally falling into the leadership role of having to schedule and organize everybody into the same place for a period of time, I kind of let go of that preconceived notion that I had before, where I did my best not to think about it. It's like, this is something I love to do, and that's it, period. No connotation involved. If you think it's one way, that's fine, but I am who I am right here and right now. And so I think that in a large way is something that can um, be an obstacle for some people when they think like, oh, I don't feel comfortable talking to girls because I'm a nerd. I like nerdy things. One of the really key things that I learned is that people, and women especially, at least in this scenario, they love it when you're passionate about something, no matter what that is. If they can feel the energy behind what you're talking about, even if they have no idea what it is, then that's still immediately attractive to them. Go ahead.
Because you're interesting.
Yeah.
And when you're interesting, women become interested in what you're interested in. You know, that's what passion gives us. You're passionate
Mhm.
about something. Like some people are passionate, like you said, even if they don't know what it is. Because it's, you become an interesting person to get to know. And that's important. And I love what you're saying is shifting your consciousness, your thoughts about yourself. I am not a nerd. I may behave or have pattern, or I enjoy nerdy things, but I am not a nerd. So letting go of the labels. The labels are not useful. I say that to my clients all the time. It's good to have awareness, but let go of the labels. Being labeled gets you boxed in.
Exactly.
It's like putting yourself in jail, in label jail. And
Mhm.
people do that with diagnosis. Oh, I have ADHD, or oh, I'm anxious all the time. I'm depressed. I'm like, labeling yourself is not useful, because you take it on and then you wear it like it's you. It's not you. You experience anxiety, you experience depression, you experience acting as a nerd, but you're not a nerd. I love that. Yay, go on. Okay, I'm excited.
Cool, cool. Yeah, so that was a key shift, and this is when I started exploring other things like being on a sports team for the first time. I'd never done that before ever in my life, but I enjoyed it. And so now you have this kind of dissonance between what people could potentially expect of me. It's like on the one hand, I do a lot of nerdy things. On the other hand, I'm very passionate about the sport that I play, and I like going to school dances and socializing with people and going to house parties on the weekend to meet new people. And so I didn't let the fact that that label had been on me previously prevent me from just trying everything that I could that I had an interest in, and meeting as many new people as I could, because I had to build a new social circle up from scratch. And ultimately, it came down to, as far as talking with women and having conversations with them, at the very least, romantically or otherwise, it just takes practice, and just relaxing a lot. We're talking about the highlights now, but this is many, many years of failed attempts and awkwardness and pain from overthinking things or feeling like I was slighted in some way. But ultimately, you have to let all of that stuff go, and you can't win at anything if you stop trying.
Yes. Practice, practice, practice. And letting go of the awkward. Okay, you felt awkward for 1,000 tries, and then the 1,001 or the 1,010th try, you feel comfortable. It's like, oh, now I know what that is. And then you start feeling more and more comfortable, expansive, expanding into your experiences. And because people do, when it comes to matters of the heart and intimacy, not sex, most people, and I talk about this a lot, most people think intimacy is sex. It's not sex. Anyone can have sex. Sex is not a thing. I mean, it is, but you know what I'm saying.
They're mutually exclusive of each other. Intimacy
Exactly.
and intercourse are two mutually exclusive things. They're often paired together, but they are not necessarily. You can have non-intimate sex with a stranger that you're not really interested in. You can also have a very intimate conversation with a stranger that you're never going to have sex with.
Exactly. So in having that intimacy, it brings you to life. It opens you up. It gets you excited, gets you talking up, staying up and talking all night and
Yeah.
laughing, and, because you feel alive, because that's when we are really intimate with ourselves and each other, when we feel alive, when we're present, when we are available. And that takes practice, practice, practice. So how did you transition from high school? Like, it's easier in high school. You're built in, you're around young men and women, and then college, you're around young men and women. And then the world. Like the world gets really small when we go into the work world, when we go into making finances for ourselves.
Mhm.
What was, and that's a huge transition. I'm challenged with that. There's a lot of wonderful things, and like my work life is good, my business is good, my clients are great, my family and friends, but I have a challenging time connecting in dating. I don't like online dating, and now since the shutdown it's harder and harder
Yes,
because
the
I'm
difficulty
home
has risen up
alone.
even more.
Exactly. Most of the time, I barely drive my car anywhere. Like, so what is that emotional maturity transition into? Okay, I'm going to be open. And when I'm out in the world, I'm going to be approachable and approach people as well. Because I think into in 2021, it got worse. Like the fear got worse because of COVID. And then we started being afraid of approaching each other. So there's like all these transitions that we need to learn to stay connected, to stay intimate with ourselves and present. So intimacy to me means that I am present, I am alive, I am available, and I'm open to connecting with another human being, one or more, whatever I'm doing. So what
Mhm.
was that like shift for you and your friends, Kris?
Well, this is a little difficult for me to speak about at this point because again, I had a strategy. Towards the end of college during my last semesters, I thought to myself, okay, I'm not going to have this resource available to me where I have plenty of a lot of single attractive women around the same age that I regularly interact with because we're in classes or school activities together. So this is the semester where I really need to find someone that I can stick with for a while. And that's what I did. So for maybe 2 years after I was done with school, I was dating this one woman and had long-term plans with her. But then she ended up cheating on me and we broke up and it broke my heart and destroyed me for probably 2 years afterwards. Up
Yeah.
until very recently have I kind of finally come to terms with it
Mhm.
and have really put more effort again. Because again, you need that healing time. I remembered thinking about during that time, I really should go out and like try to meet some girls or like meet someone new so I can fill that void, that gap that was left behind by the last relationship. But I just didn't feel it in me because I was still healing. I was too afraid to be hurt or rejected again that I didn't have the confidence to take that first step out again. And sometimes that's okay. And that's what I accepted for a while is this is just gonna run its course. I'll get there eventually. It was a long relationship, so it's gonna take even longer to recover from. And now that I finally have, it's easier to have that confidence to go out and meet people. But at the same time, at this point in my adult life where you don't have those regularly and readily available communities to interact with people, it's it feels like taking a much larger risk.
Yeah.
You don't have a baseline like passive social currency to rely on. You have to go out to a bar or perhaps you know someone through a mutual friend. That would be an ideal scenario, but that isn't always the case. And just trying to meet people, or you see someone in a coffee shop and you have to approach them. You don't know if they may be single or if they're interested or if they're busy working on something. It just feels like there's a lot more risk involved. And so I think personally, I would like to uh, rely on some of my previous strategies, such as joining certain communities to try and meet more people, or trying to network with your local friend groups and trying to meet more people that way, or through maybe some work that you do, some coworkers. A friend of mine was dating one of his coworkers that he had gotten to know very well through his job for quite a while, and they had a pretty good relationship. But he has also tried to do the online dating thing like I have, and just we just got tired of it.
Yeah, that online is it's like a lot of fishing and you got to throw a lot of fish back.
Yeah, it's a very, very low margin of success.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and some people do succeed, but it's not easy.
Yeah, and I did once.
Sure.
The last girl that I was dating, we dated for maybe 5, 6 months.
Hmm.
Um, and that was just kind of like a 1 in 1,000 sort of scenario where we actually had a decent conversation before we had ever met in person, and then we planned out a date. And that was very much reliant on the type of person that she was as well, and her previous experiences with online dating and her preferences and what I had to offer to her. So it was kind of like the planets aligning, like once
Yeah,
in 1,000 years kind of thing. I would not expect that to happen again.
yeah, yeah. And it is smart to join communities. Like I tell my clients, if you don't have one, start one. Join communities. If you're a guy, join quote unquote a brotherhood. If you're a woman, join quote unquote a sisterhood. Get support in your life. Meetup, you know about Meetup, right? Uh,
Yes, I believe I'm familiar.
yeah, like I have a group on Meetup on Sunday, and I facilitate coaching for people, and it's for free. So if you want to check it out, um, Loving with Hadia. And I'm not trying to pitch it. I'm just saying, like, if you want to find like-minded people, like heart, like interests, go to Meetup or start your own meetups on Craigslist or at the library or through find your people and put in an effort. And staying home, a lot of people just stay home and they're smoking pot or drinking and just gaming and isolating. Isolation numbs us out. And
Hmm.
believe me, I'm an isolator, especially when I don't feel well and I live in
Yep.
chronic pain. It doesn't serve us. Isolation doesn't serve us. Being out in the world serves us. Just smiling and saying hello and connecting and being present with your body, with your mind, with your emotion, with your spirit, and keep saying yes to life, to living, yes to experience. It's just an experience and nothing's forever. Like I love that you had a strategy, and your strategy was you met this woman at tail end of your college experience, you guys fell in love, you had a life plan, and it didn't work out and it hurt. And I'm imagining it hurt like hell. It's your first breakup. Our first anything feels overwhelming, even if it's a good thing. It's daunting and it's overwhelming. You know, the first time you went to school when you were little, the first time you graduated, the first time you went to college, everything, any first, even if it's a good first or not a good first, it feels too much.
Yeah.
You keep showing up, you keep emotionally up leveling, emotionally evolving. Emotional maturity is really important. And I love that we're talking about this because you're young. And I wish I learned these things when I was very young, like things like that. And I love that my clients are in their early 20s. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. You're here because you want to have a good life and you're starting young. You're not waiting till you're 30, 40, 50, you know? You know, people in their 60s say, I'm trying to figure out what to do when when I'm old. I'm like, you're already old. So don't wait till you're old. Start your journey of self-discovery, self-awareness, emotional, mental maturity when you're young. It'll be good for you. And I love that you talk about strategies and you talk about shifting and being open. So what are you doing right now? I know you're not in a relationship because you had also, if I could say, a recent breakup and you had to get through that. And how do you support yourself between the downtimes in transitioning from the ouch moments, either through not having jobs and money and relationships, into the, oh, this is good. I'm back on track with my life. I'm on a good path. Like what do you do in downtime? Because that's really, it's important to have downtime. It's important to rest. As I know this from working out, when you work out, your muscles don't build when you're actually physically working. They build when you're resting on the downtime. And that's how it is also with our life, with our spirit, with our emotional and mental well-beingness. We heal and we grow and we build strength and empowerment inside of ourselves in our downtimes. And we're going to have downtimes a lot. You know, as long as we're living, there's going to be painful experiences and joyful experiences. So, and to accept that, be in acceptance. And you talked about acceptance as well. So what are you currently doing for yourself? Are you dating a lot? Are you just embracing? What are you doing? Tell us.
Well, I think in a large way, my strategy in situations like this is that I like to reconnect back to my core community as well as my core passions and a few little like mental comfort foods. Like going back to a movie or a TV series that you've seen 16 times, but you know that every time you watch it, you're gonna have a good time. And that's just for you because that's your experience in consuming that piece of media. And then I've been spending more time on art and playing music, not just playing music, but also getting into songwriting now. And then planning games with my friends that we can go do. We're actually going on a big trip to finish a game that we've been working on for almost 7 years now. We're flying out to San Francisco to meet in person for one last time to finish it. And that's something to look forward to. And I think that's another key thing is when you're in these low points, even if you can't look forward to whatever you were just separated from, whether it was the comfort of being established in a place or the comfort of someone you were in a relationship with, you need something to look forward to so that you're not always looking backwards. And it takes effort to make something like that. It's not just going to happen by itself, but putting in that little bit of effort to have something that you can see there's a brighter future ahead and I'm excited to be alive for it makes all the difference.
I love it. That's brilliant. And on that note, we will be wrapping up. So setting yourself up for success.
Exactly.
Staying present in what's happening, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now people are saying that more and more.
Mhm.
It's okay to hurt. It's just part of our human experience. And it's okay to get over it. Don't live in your pain. Don't live in your depression. Don't live in your anxiety because it's not who you are. Don't live in your diagnoses or labels. It's not who you are. People heal from everything. Everything can be healed. Everything can be released, cleared, and cleansed. And all of us truly can have the life that we desire, we want, and we love. So again, we've been talking with Kris, and Kris you're amazing.
Thank you.
You're really amazing. If you want to follow Kris on Instagram, will you tell us again how people can reach you and look at your art and maybe buy some of your art and maybe, you know, if you want to start a new Dungeons and Dragons circle.
Maybe, could be. Though I believe I might be retiring after this next game, at least from being the dungeon master. So again, my name is Kris. You can find my Instagram page over at Lichkeela. That's LICH_KEELA. And that will have links to my Patreon where you can support me, and as well as my Fiverr where you can request specific art commissions from me.
That's awesome. I love it. And I'm Hadia. HadiaLoving.com is my webpage. I am a spiritual counselor, life coach, fulfillment coach, here to help you create the life that you want. And as always, I love you. I love you, Kris. I love you. And love is given. All of us truly love ourselves and each other. Every single person is born brilliant, loving, kind, zestful, smart, wise, free, joyous. And we forget because most of us got hurt at a very, very young age. Some of us got hurt as early as in the womb. Learn to release your pain and live in your nature. Awaken to who you truly are. I love you. Kris loves you. And we will talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody. Mwah.
Bye.